Hey guys, what's going on? It is your favorite doc. It's Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, psychology expert, life coach, also president of the biggest, baddest civil rights organization, NAACP in Los Angeles. Today we are going to be talking about mental health, the importance of it. We're going to wrap that around with policy, around policing, and what resources are lacking, what resources are needed. And I have the honor of having my personal client here with me, who I'm speaking to. I've been with her and her son for about 5 or so years. He's dual diagnosed, a young, beautiful man who has bipolar as well as schizoaffective. And we know what comes along with that: depression, manic episodes, and a lot of other things. I'm going to let Danielle talk about her experience of being a mother to a child who is dual diagnosed, and also her experience of working with me and the journey we've had together, which has been really rewarding for me, but it's been a lot of work. Okay. And so she's going to talk about that. And I want y'all to get an insight of not just what it is to have these diagnoses, right, as a person, but what it's like to parent a child that has that. Oftentimes, the individual that's diagnosed with this gets a lot of attention, a lot of help, a lot of resources, which is good because they need that, right? But we don't talk about the caretakers or the parents who are at the mercy of, taking care of their children and how much of a toll it takes on them, and that they're a person too, and that their livelihood and their wellness matters. And how do we do the duality of making sure that both get the resources they need so that they collectively can make sure that their mental health is in a good space. And I do want to say this, although obviously as president of NAACP, I proudly fight for the rights of the Black community. But I want to say this, that mental health and a great quality of life, it's not a race thing. It's not a particular person thing or a gender thing. It is a human right for people to have mental healthiness, and to have the best quality of life that they can possibly receive. So that being said, I want to introduce my amazing client, Danielle Love. And so Danielle, if you don't mind just giving us a little bit of just like the background of Evan, his diagnosis, when the onset was of that, and then, how you even thought, let me try to seek help, so that my son can have a better quality of life, and not be so much in prison because of his diagnosis.
It's been a journey. It's been a lot. It's been hard. The first episode happened like maybe about 5 months after my mom passed away. My mom passed away in April of 2018. And him and his grandmother was really close. They were best friends. He could do no wrong in her eyes.
Yeah.
And him and I would kind of clash because I would tell him, I try to parent him and tell him he couldn't do certain things. And of course, my mom would kind of intercept. And, they were just really good buds. She passed away in April, and in January of the next year, like the ending of December, January, just out of the clear blue, he got manic one day. It was it's just like it snapped. Like that morning he was fine, and that evening he was a totally different person, and I could just tell something was wrong. He was angry at me. He was bouncing off the walls, and it was just havoc in my house for like 3 days.
Now let me ask this: was there any substance uses? I'm asking
Yes.
for a reason. What
Yes.
what what, what did he start to use as far as?
He was heavy smoking marijuana at the time. I mean, when he wake up, when he go to sleep, during the day, that's pretty much, what he was doing. And I didn't know what was going on at the time.
Yeah.
I just know that something was not right. Um, he was taking my phone and just wouldn't give it to me. I was like I was a prisoner in my house for that first 3 days.
Ooh.
And it was a lot. I didn't know what was going on. So I called the police, and and I told them what was going on. They told me to call the pet team. So I did call the pet team at that time, and they saw that he needed some help. But it was like the police had been called several times. They wouldn't do anything. They just kind of said, calm down or whatever, and just kind of brushed it off. And so once I finally got the pet team to come, they noticed that he did need some help.
Yeah.
And so they actually had the ambulance to come, and they took him to the hospital. And
Was the pet team arriving and coming and remove him from the house, was that a traumatic experience as well, or what was that like?
I was happy that they said that they were going to go take him to the hospital to get him some help, because I knew he needed the help. It was really hard to see that because he wouldn't go with them on his own. So basically, the police had to help him on the gurney. They had to strap him down. That part was hard to see.
Yep.
I knew they had to do it, but that part was hard to see because it was just kind of like, I'm forcing my child to do this. This is traumatic for him and for myself.
Yep.
And it was so funny because I had just moved in my house that I was at, and of course, brand new neighbors and everything literally have been there. We were only there for like maybe a week and a half, and then this happens. So they take him to the hospital. They took him to Los Angeles. They were there. He was there for about maybe 2 weeks.
Is that where they diagnosed him?
They were the first ones to diagnose him.
And what was his initial diagnosis?
First, she said, I see. She said, first she was like, I really don't know. She said, first I see maybe bipolar. I said, I can see that because I know he was kind of always a moody child. Like, he'll just be mad and then he'll be okay. We'll talk about it. I could see the ups and downs. Once she said that, I was like, I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see it. And then the next day she was like, I said, do we have any more information? What's going on? And she was like, I think he's schizoaffective. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, what do you mean? And I couldn't understand like what she was, I understood what she was saying, but I couldn't understand what she was saying.
Right.
And at the end, she diagnosed him as schizoaffective with a base of bipolar.
Yeah.
And he was there for a while. They had him on a 50-50 hold, 51-50 hold. And of course, it went to the 14-day.
Yep.
And it was crazy.
Then it was time for him to come home because he can't stay there.
No, he can't stay
long-term.
there. So he came home and
Medication?
they gave him medication. And he stayed with me for about maybe 3-4 months. And it was like having a small child in the house again. I would tell him, I need you to take your medicine. Sometimes he would take it.
Sometimes he wouldn't.
And sometimes he wouldn't. Now, at this time, he's 20. He's a grown man.
Yeah.
I cannot make him take his medication. But I knew what happens if you don't take your medication, we got this problem.
He goes into
so
manic. He has an
literally,
episode.
I had no life because basically I had to take him everywhere I went, or I had to have somebody watch him or something. I just didn't want to leave him alone. And it was just got to a point of me trying to make sure he takes his medicine. It was just, that was my goal. Every night, you need to take your medicine. You need to take your medicine. The medicine was locked up. I had it to give it to him and everything. And like I said, sometimes it was good, sometimes it wasn't. But it was like, I can't live this type of life.
Yep.
And of course, what he started doing was smoking marijuana again.
More. Yep.
And it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. And it was just kind of, then he didn't want to take medicine at all. And he would be fine. And then all of a sudden, again, he was going to, he was seeing a psychiatrist where they was giving him his meds and everything.
And let me just be clear, a psychiatrist prescribes medication.
Yes.
But they don't provide talk therapy or they
Right.
don't provide tools. And so
Right.
he's getting medicated up until this point, but he's not getting the proper tools on how to regulate his emotions. Or he's not getting psychoeducation about his diagnosis. So he has the awareness, the tools to understand, how do I prevent my episodes? How do I have the awareness of knowing where I am emotionally and what are the tools to regulate that and what are the resources I need so that I can be in a place of unimpairment and healthiness and I'm not causing impairment for myself and everyone else without the ability to manage it.
Exactly. So once he talked to that doctor, he said he needs to talk to someone.
Yeah.
He needs to talk to someone. And, he would go there. I was able to get him to go there. They would give him his medication. It was like, we really need him to stay sober for a while because we want to find out what's causing this? What happens? Like all of a sudden, this kid is full blown, got this condition. Where did it come from? Is it, is it from drugs? Was it drug induced?
Yeah.
Was it really mental? What's going on? So they really didn't know. So he did tell me to go talk to somebody. So I called this insurance, and I was looking through books trying to find somebody for him to talk to and everything. And it was so funny. I went to this to a wine tasting, and who did I meet? I met you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I met you,
remember.
and you mentioned that you were a life coach and that a therapist, and I talked to you and I opened up, and I don't normally do that. And I opened up and I told you about him. You saw a picture of him, and I said, I'm just trying to find somebody, for him. I've been looking and searching, and either they were full or they just didn't take the case or whatever. And I remember when you guys first met. And
I was gonna say, do you remember our first session?
yeah.
Wow.
And it was a blessing because he liked you. He was able to open up to you because that was the problem. He didn't open up to everybody.
Right.
And he did feel safe, and he opened up to you. And it's been a journey, and you've been there with me every step of the way.
What do you think was unique about my approach that made him open up? And still to this day, right, I'm his go-to doctor, and we have this really unique relationship.
Because you're real, you're a real person. It's not like you don't come in as a doctor, like with the doctor terminologies, and just not really talking medical, and you don't understand. It's layman's terms. You're talking to him, you telling him what he needs to hear, you give him that tough love when he needs it, and then you give him the tools that he needs to have in order to make himself feel better and deal with a lot of things. And you guys clicked, and it was good. It was really good. And you've helped me out a lot too, because it was hard for me to navigate this whole thing. I mean, because I didn't know what to do. I had never experienced this. It was a lot. And mind you, my mom had just passed, so it was a lot. I still have not unpacked my mom's death because Evan has basically, it's been a whirlwind.
He's consumed everything.
It's consumed my life. He has consumed my life. He has.
So you haven't been able to even process your stuff because his concerns have definitely consumed you.
Absolutely.
And I love that you just said that, because that pivots me into when he was in the dual diagnosis home, and he called me and said, Dr. Bryant, send me an Uber. I'm leaving. Right? Yes. And I said, Evan, I'm not sending you no Uber. You cannot leave that place. You called me a few hours later and said, Evan just broke into my house and he's back. I said, oh, so he AWOL, he left the place. And you said, yes. And you said, I don't know what to do because this has become a pattern that he'll leave the homes, everything's locked up, he'll break into the garage, he's in the home, and I come home and I'm just like, oh my God, Evan, how did you get here? I don't know if he's manic, I don't know if he took his medication, if he didn't. Right. And I think at one point he either broke the window or came through the window. Something had went on.
He came through the window, it was open. He came through the window, and I came home and there he is on the couch. Hey, Mom. I'm like, what are you doing here? Why are you here?
Why are you here?
And
I remember that was our first conversation when I said, Danielle, you're gonna have to create boundaries. And I said, you said, what do you mean? I said, you're gonna have to create boundaries. Although he has this diagnosis, he's still your child. There still has to be boundaries and discipline. And you said, what does that mean? I said, you are gonna have to set a boundary that he can no longer come there. And if he comes there, you have to let him know the consequence to breaking this boundary is, I'm going to have to call the police.
Yeah. And that was the hardest thing. That was the hardest thing to actually say to your kid, you cannot come here and be here anymore. Now, I did not want him in the streets. I don't want him to be homeless.
You made that very clear. But
that's always been my thing. But I had to learn how to establish boundaries. Now I have those hard boundaries. He knows he can't come home. I don't know what you're going to do, how you're going to go ahead and handle it, but you can't come here. And it's gotten to the fact now he doesn't even know where I live, which I feel bad about that.
Right.
But it's another thing of tough love where if he doesn't know where exactly I am, then he has no choice but to try to navigate and figure it out and work his way through
in the
it
home
and
that
stay
he's in.
right.
And the main issue, let me say this, the boundary and consequence was not to put him in jail.
No.
Because we made it very clear that when you do call 911, you say, my son is dual diagnosis. I'm not calling for him to be arrested or put in jail. He has a mental illness, and this is what it is. And it was more about teaching him a boundary and showing him that I'm going to reinforce this boundary.
Right.
So that he learns discipline while he's also learning other tools on how to navigate his diagnosis. Right. And it's worked. Of course, he's still in his diagnosis.
Yeah.
Nothing's perfect. But from there, Evan has been in these homes. He's been in different homes because we've had to fight to get him in different homes. He's AWOL, or there's been an issue, or we call the pet team, or I'm calling the hospital, or I'm calling the psychiatric ward, or I'm on the phone with him, or he's crying. Poor baby's crying at the top of his lungs, and I'm on the phone with him. But he stayed in these homes. You were able to move peacefully. You were able to step out and actually open up your own business now because the boundaries that you set were not, again, to consequence him for more harm or impairment. It was to teach him a lesson that, Evan, with or without your diagnosis, there's a big world out there. And if we don't teach you boundaries and discipline, you're going to end up in a worse position than you're in.
Yep.
And now what I love is he may joke about, well, where do you live? But it's not even as forceful as it was before. It was, I'm coming home. I don't care what you say. I'm in the house. And when there was a time I came over and you said, Dr. Bryant, he just literally took a water bottle and threw it in my face.
Yep.
And I remember that whole session. At the end of that session, what did he do?
He came and apologized.
I said, we are not doing that. We are totally not doing that. Out of pocket, Evan. Out of pocket. But Dr. Bryant, out of pocket.
And he knows. He knows. Evan has some issues, but he's not a dumb kid. He's smart.
No, not at all.
He's smart.
And because he's not just smart, he's actually extremely intelligent.
Yes.
To the point where he knows how to use his intelligence, which goes with his diagnosis, to manipulate anyone if they allow it.
Yep.
And he was manipulating you, and that's why I said we got to have boundaries.
For sure.
Right?
And I didn't see it. I did not see.
And you cried on the phone with me. You're like,
I couldn't do it. I've been on your phone crying a whole lot. It's been a lot of those crying sessions.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I got those boundaries, because if I didn't have those boundaries, I will walk out my front door and it'll be Evan and his bags there. And I'm like, again? I've gotten phone calls where they're, he can't stay here no more. They're kicking him out. And then when they're kicking him out, like at night, I do kind of have to sometimes take him in.
of course.
But the
safety
next
is
day
definitely
it's like, okay,
priority.
we got to find you somewhere. You got to get out of here, because literally those 2 nights, it's a lot. It's a lot. He's a lot. He's my child. He's my only child, but he is a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with it now. I tell him, you're a lot, and I have to separate myself from you right now. And he's like, okay, well, he kind of understands that now.
But
But
he's understanding it more now because of the boundaries, which I'm so proud of you. By the way, I always tell you I'm so proud that, because it was so hard for you, Danielle, to even receive, like, I have to tell my child no, I have to set boundaries. And you said, you're like, but Doc, I don't want him on the streets. I don't want him in jail. There's COVID going on. I don't want my son in jail with COVID. It's a pandemic. It was so many different moving elements and parts that were or could have worked against you, that you allowed us to team up together and really push this thing forward, while Evan is creating a new norm, because that was a new norm for him. So he's like, wait a minute, it's a no? I've always been able to run this game and run these plays and manipulate. What do you mean no? And you're like, wait, I got to actually apply these boundaries and see my son out there trying to figure it out with these homes who are saying, you got to come get him. It's a wrap.
Yep.
And there's been times when me, you, and Evan are on the phone together. He's manic. He's trying to get to where you are. We're trying to explain to him, Ev, you have to stay where you are, right?
Yep.
So we're loving him, but we're pressing him with boundaries. We're pressing him with principles, and we're pressing him with discipline. And he didn't always get it.
No, and he still doesn't get it, because when he's in that state, he doesn't get it.
Yep.
Unfortunately, he was just hospitalized a couple of weeks ago. And he was doing fine and everything. And all of a sudden, I get a call from the hospital. Just want to let you know that Evan signed himself out the hospital. What? He signed himself out the hospital again. And I said, well, did you guys give him his medication? They was like, no, he just signed himself out. The doctor says that he's not ready to go home, but he wanted to go and he left. I said, okay, fine. I call him. What are you doing? I need to get on with my life. I can't keep staying here and doing this. I'm just over it. I'm over it too. And I said, you want to go ahead and move on with your life. I understand that. Yes, I want you to move on with your life and do better as well. But you have to stay on your medication. And when you're not on your medication, what happens? You end up back here.
Yeah.
You end up back here. So I'm going to tell you how this is going to go this time. I said, I'm turning your phone off. And then I'm not going to pay your insurance. So you're not going to have your phone and you're not going to have insurance. And you can go ahead and go on about your life and deal what you got to do because I can't do this anymore.
And what did he say?
I literally couldn't do it anymore. He was like, you're blackmailing me. I was like, I'm not blackmailing you. I'm just telling you what I'm going to do because I can't do this anymore because it's a lot that I'm getting phone calls that you're leaving and you don't have your medication and you're just out there. I'm not going to do it. If that's what you want to do, of course, you're 27 years old, you're a man. Yes, by all means, you can do it, but you're not going to have my support. And so he ended up signing himself back into the hospital.
Hold on, wait, see what you just said? This is why I say, seriously, I'm so proud of you because all you did right there was stand on your square, set boundaries, take leadership, and say, baby, I've been having your back. I love you. I'm paying for Dr. Bryant. I'm paying for medication. I'm supporting you. But these are the boundaries. And this is what's going to happen if you don't do what's best for who? Yourself.
Right.
So he's getting them. It's going to take him longer. He has a mental illness.
Yes.
So he doesn't have the normalcy of processing like we do. But he's getting it. You said he went back and checked his little tail back into the hospital.
Yeah, he did. Because he could care less about the insurance. It was the phone.
But regardless,
it was the phone.
you as a mama set boundaries.
I did. I
And
was
you
at the
stayed
point.
you stayed in, but before, Danielle, you weren't able to do that before.
No, I wasn't. But I'm just at the point where I'm just tired. I'm exhausted. This has been a hard journey, hard. And I just get to that point where I'm okay with what I say. Like I was okay with that. Like if he walked out and didn't do that, and he was just going to be gone. He was out on the streets. I was okay with it.
But there was a time when you weren't. And
No,
so
it
for the
wasn't.
mothers who are not quite where you are, our parents, not just mother, parents, right?
Period.
Both mother and fathers are both dealing with these type of situations in children. Talk about when you weren't and how hard it was, because when you asked me, you said, well, so like, when is, you think he's going to be healed? When is he going to be healed? Like, when is this going to go away?
I
And
remember
said,
that.
Remember, I said, hold on, Danielle. This is a personality disorder. This is not a mood disorder. I said, this is going to be something that we are going to have to manage for the rest of his life. You said, wait a minute, you mean my son is going to be like this forever? Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
And you were just like, there's no way.
Because it was hard. It was hard. It was hard. It was heartbreaking. It was stressful because, like I said, I'm trying to work, but then I got to babysit him and make sure he's not tearing up or burning down my house. I mean, literally, I was on vacation one time and I did have to leave him there because all of a sudden he had to come home. So he was there. I'm getting on the plane, coming back home, and he's calling me. He's crying, just crying. I'm like, what's wrong? He flooded my house. I'm like, oh, you God. He left the tub on, water everywhere, water's coming out the ceilings and everything. I'm like, unbelievable. This is the reason why you can't stay with me. This is the reason why.
Yeah.
So it was like I had a few days of rest, and the minute I landed back down to reality, I had to go deal with him and all that issues.
Immediately.
Talk
About the difference between when he consistently stays on his medication and when he doesn't, because there was a time where I popped up on him. It wasn't our session day, anything. I just, something in my spirit said, pop up on Evan at one of the homes he was staying in. And when I popped in, he was in group. And I said, can you get him out of group? When he came out of group, he just had this stare like he was looking all the way through me. And I said, Evan, yeah, yeah. I said, did you take your medication? And he just started crying. They won't give it to me. No. And he went into, and I'm hearing voices. Tell him to stop. Tell him to stop. Do you remember when I immediately called the house manager and said, where in the fuck is his medication?
Yeah.
Oh, we had the psychiatrist cancel it. In the middle of this young man taking his medication, and he's in group, and you can't tell that this boy is manic right now?
Right.
But I was only able to do that, want to give you your flowers again, because you've always given me, once you started trusting me, the authority to make decisions on behalf
absolutely.
of Evan, with or without you there. But I always kept you in the loop.
Right.
But they immediately got the psychiatrist on the phone, the medication there immediately, and Evan's manic regulated like this. And when I called you, I said, Danielle, I got there and they are denying him his medication. You were like, what? I said, no, we've already got the psychiatrist on the phone. They've already re-prescribed it, and his medication should be there in a few hours. When I tell you the horror on Evan's face, like he literally was looking at me like he was looking through me. And when I said, where is your medication? Tears just, and I'm holding him and he's going, they won't give me my medication. And you know, when he goes, he goes. And
Right.
he just was, but I can tell that he was in his manic because of the medication being denied to him. And I'm like, how do you not
And I don't
see
even know
this?
what the situation was with that time. Why did they do that? I know it didn't happen again. But
Oh,
now,
yeah, definitely didn't happen again.
no, because it was like, because it's like now even certain hospitals, this whole system is flawed because he can be in the hospital, and this last time he was been in 3 different hospitals. They'll keep him for the hold and then they'll let him out. And clearly when he comes out, he's not stable
At all, yeah.
at all. And it's like, did they give you any medicine? No. Why don't you have any medication with you and you're here? Then I have to call the hospital. Then he's gone into another manic episode. And 3 days later, he's got to go to another hospital.
Yep.
And one place kept him for literally 4 hours. They put a hold on him, kept him for 4 hours, and then they put him in an Uber and dropped him off at a 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
And it's like, this kid has no medication. Now he's fully into it. It's just a lot. And he has those ups and downs because they won't keep him on his medicine and they won't get him regulated. Right now, you know, where he was, they kind of finally got him stable. They got him on all his medications. He's been on them. But being Evan, you know, sometimes, you know, they call me and it was like, yeah, he didn't want to take his medicine this weekend. And I told him, I said, I don't know, you got to keep this up. You got to keep up with your medicine. Or once again, don't call me.
Yeah.
Don't call me. If you're not going to take your medicine,
And again,
don't
I
call
want to
me.
be clear that that's not you not wanting to help or support your son. 'Cause
No,
you've been
absolutely.
doing that full-fledged
No.
to the point where you were enabling him, you were supporting him so much. And I remember at the beginning I told you that this is more about helping create a new norm for him that is helping him get into a space of doing what's best for him.
Yeah.
Which is his medication. Because that's been our biggest issue, is keeping him medicated, not for the sake of just because we want him to be in a regulated zone.
Right.
Even when I talk to Evan, I say, Evan, when you're not medicated, how do you feel? I hate it. I hate it. I hate it, Dr. Bryant. I hate it. I can't regulate my emotions. I hate it. I said that
Right.
when you are medicated, what's the difference? I am calm. I do feel better. But I just
But he feels that he's not creative. And I'm like,
and
you
he
know
feels
what?
like he's not normal. He's
Yeah.
told me a lot, like, I feel like I'm normal and constantly having to take medication makes me feel like I'm different than being a normal
Right.
man. And I'm
Right.
different. And I say, Ev, you are different. Some people need medication, some don't. But some people don't need medication. Some people need other stuff.
Right.
Like I told him, if I don't meditate every day for 20 minutes, if I'm not listening to the word all day long, I'll be done flip somebody's top. So for me, my medication is my meditation.
Right.
It's the word. It's me working out. I have to run 4 or 5 miles 5 days a week because it's my therapy. If I'm not doing that, Ev, then guess what? I'm bound to lose it. That's my medication. Yours has to be administered either intravenously or through a capsule.
Yeah.
So everyone has to find out what is our medication that keeps us regulated, that helps us manage ourselves so that we are not running into impairment.
Right.
And yours just happens to be medication. So we all got to know what that is, Ev.
Yep.
And so when we have that conversation, he goes back into understanding that medication is good for him.
Right.
And then a couple weeks or a month later,
with it.
and there was a time where I had him calling me. Anytime I take the Vega shot, I said, call me. I'm going to stay on the phone with you. Because remember, he had to administer it himself.
had to do it
I said, I'm going to
himself.
stay on the phone with you while you administer it. Call me. I don't care what I'm doing, I'm stopping. He would call and say, Dr. Bryant, it's time. And then he'd poke his, I say, okay, did you get it in there? Yes. Okay, the medication has been taken. Yes. Okay, I love you. I love you too.
It's been a ride.
It's been a ride.
It's been a ride.
It's been a ride. He's called me and said, Dr. Bryant, send me some Chipotle right now. I said, Evan,
Oh yeah.
I'm not sending you no Chipotle at 8 o'clock at night, Evan. But those are the moments that I love the most,
Right.
because he's such himself. Like Evan is just,
That's him.
He's so him.
That
and
is
then there's
him.
been time where I come over and he goes, I'm treating you to lunch. Guess what we're eating? Chipotle.
You know, that's his favorite thing. He's gonna
Wait,
treat you to
wait,
lunch, but it's gonna
wait,
be his favorite thing.
Well, no, he gonna treat me, but then he called you and said, Mom, I need you to pay for the Chipotle for me and Dr. I said,
Yeah.
Evan, who's treating me? You or
But-
Danielle?
It was really me, but that's what he wanted to do.
But that's how beautiful his heart is.
Yeah.
You know, where he is so caring and so loving. But it is. I want parents to know it comes in these seasons, in these pockets, which clinically is called episodes and it's called manic.
Yeah.
Where and there's one more thing I want you to touch on before we wrap. Evan is he's just such a beautiful young man. He's still a boy to me, but man, inside and out. But he has these marks on his face. Where did that come from?
He burnt himself. And this was even before he was diagnosed. And it didn't until after he got into therapy, he admitted what was going on, because he had burnt his cheek, and he told me he was trying to light up a joint. That he still says that,
That's
but
not what it was.
It was not,
Tell
because
what-
basically he had the curling iron, and he basically burned his face. And
I want to be clear, because it's not like a little burn mark. He took the curling iron,
iron
you see
and
the
just-
mark, and sizzled, burnt his face. And you see, which I call beauty mark just because I love him so much, but you see the curling iron, the form or the shape of the curling iron on this baby's face.
Yep.
You see it. And but and why am I saying that? Because I'm trying to show the depth of how intense mental illness is.
Oh, it is.
When someone's in pain or in trauma and they don't know what it is, that pain externalizes.
And the signs are there. And there were signs. Now I can see that there were signs.
Because now you have psychoeducation.
Right. But I didn't. And it's probably an underlying issue that he's always had. And the drugs and everything just heightened it. And it was just kind of
It
when my
created
mom,
a chemical imbalance.
yeah, and it
Yep.
it exploded. But, he finally, opened up and said, I would self-medicate myself all the time. I didn't like it,
And self-inflicting pain. Burning your face with a curling iron is the epitome of self-inflicting
It is.
pain.
It
It's
is.
someone who's in pain trying to take away the internal pain they feel by inflicting external pain on
Right.
himself. And I have to say this because I'm so proud of him. We haven't had
No,
that scare with him ever again.
no,
Like nothing
No.
about self-inflicting pain, no burning of himself, none of that
no.
at all.
I'm glad about that, because that's a whole nother issue. He's got enough issues that we don't need nothing else.
Yeah. But I say that because I want people to know that it takes a village.
It does.
It takes a team, and the work really works if you
It does.
stay on the work. And you have to have discipline. You got to have boundaries, not just only with your child or your loved one, but within yourself as a parent or the caregiver. You have to. You can't allow the diagnosis or the title of what they're putting on this person negate you from implementing the necessary tools of anybody who needs to be able to function and be in a healthy space.
Absolutely. And like I said, thank you so much for helping him out and helping us, because without you and those talks and talking me down off the ledge and even being able to deal with him, because there was a lot of times where I couldn't handle him. And I kind of had to tap you in and be like, you're it. I can't do it. And you did. And I appreciate that. I mean, there's times when he was in the hospital and you called the hospital to talk to the doctors. I mean, even when you were on vacation, we were a team. And, I'll never forget
The
that.
times y'all sitting in the car and he is literally manic, screaming, crying at the top of his lungs. And you're like, Dr. Bryant's on the phone. And little by little, he's regulated. And there's been one time out of the 5-6 years I remember, and because all the other times, even when the psychiatric ward calls me, the homes call me, we can't regulate him. The only person he says that can regulate him is Dr. Bryant. Call Dr. Bryant. Call Dr. Bryant. I get him on the phone. He's and then about 2 minutes into it,
You're able to redirect him.
he's regulated. He's redirected. The one time which, because I've been doing this for so long, I don't personalize anything. I think it's funny and it was adorable. Someone who's not trained wouldn't have thought that, but on the phone, you told him, I'm calling Dr. Bryant. And he said, and you told on him. Once y'all got me on the phone, you told he was mad at you for telling on him. You said, tell her what you said. And he wouldn't say it. And you said, F Dr. Bryant. Dr. Bryant could suck mine.
Yep.
And I said, F, that's what you said? He was like, yeah, because I was just mad. Remember, I didn't mean it. I was just mad. I said, that's okay. I still love you. What's going on, Evan? You got to relax. You got to calm down. But I'm showing that you have to be in a place of knowing how to facilitate somebody in that space. As law enforcement or someone who's in a place of leadership, if you run across somebody who has this mental illness, these diagnoses, and they're acting in a way that Evan was acting in his episode, trauma looks totally different on the Black community, let alone a Black person with mental illness.
It does.
And if you're not trained to understand what trauma looks like on them, you will personalize that and project onto them something that is not theirs. Because in that moment, I didn't even feel moved. Like nothing in me made me go, well, F you too. Everything in me thought, I just love him. He's in his moment.
Let's
figure out how we regulate you.
Yeah.
Because when you get on this medication and you calm down, I'm ripping into you. When I know it's fair. When I know it's fair. When I know you can handle it. When it's okay. And I say, Evan, remember what you said? He goes, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. I'm like, I know. But I just want to make you aware, of what you said when you said it. I know, Dr. Bryant, but I love it. I was like, listen, I'm not going nowhere.
Right.
But we're going to talk about it.
Right.
And so just showing that piece, and I say that because, law enforcement is there to enforce the law. They're not there to be therapists or psychiatrists. However, although I don't believe that they need to be psychiatrists, psychologists, they do need to be trained on what trauma looks like on a mentally ill person. They need to be trained on certain traits so that they understand, wait a minute, I came to enforce the law, but at this moment, there's no law to be enforced. Or if there is a law to be enforced, so there's a duality of, let me call a mental health specialist who can help me regulate this person. And we can even see if law enforcement is needed in this moment. They need to have the mental health competence, just like culture competence, to know who they're dealing with. Because enforcing the law is not just about running up on somebody and saying, you're a criminal.
Yep.
What if this person's diagnosis doesn't allow them to have the awareness of what committing a crime is? So you mean to tell me that this person is still going to be handcuffed and a lot of times undergoing police brutality, a lot of times undergoing even more trauma than they're already experiencing because you weren't trained to understand not how to be a mental health specialist, but understand what mental health trauma looks like?
Right.
That's some BS.
Right.
Those are legislations and policies that have to be shifted because we've had folks with mental health be murdered at the hands of officers.
Yeah.
Even after the parents say, my kid has autism.
Yep.
My kid has mental illness. So when you come, they're going to look different than your normal person.
I cringe every time Evan gets in that situation where we have to call the police out. I'm scared to death. And I talk to them. I'm like, please do not hurt my child. He doesn't have any weapons on him. He is manic right now. I tell him he's dealing with mental illness. He's a good kid. He's not going to hurt you. He may try to pull back, but he don't have any weapons. Like, don't hurt him. And I'm giving this whole spiel each and every time, but I'm scared. I'm fortunate that it hasn't had a situation where it went bad. They've always been understanding and they've been helpful. So thus far,
Yeah.
that's what I have to
And
say.
thank God for you and Evan, we haven't had to experience that, but
Right.
there's a lot of different cases where parents call 911 to get help, and the help that they get is the death of their child,
Right.
the murder of their child.
Right.
And again, it's not, law enforcement is trained based on what law enforcement is training them on.
Right.
The policies systemically need to be changed so that law enforcement now has a better outlook on who they're policing and who they're leading, because that makes a big difference. If you come onto a scene and you're like, wait a minute, this person is, there's some mental health traits that I see, let me call someone who can figure this out, or put them in a home, or provide a resource, or get them somewhere else, because now I understand my job as a law enforcement is no longer needed here. I'm not here to enforce law.
Right. And then sometimes you even have the people from the pet team calling, and they cannot even handle the situation. They'll go, we're trying to call them and say, hey, we need this person to be taken to the hospital, and they don't take them. They go, oh, he doesn't fit the criteria. Well, what's the criteria? You can surely see that this person is manic and he's got an issue and a problem going on, and they go ahead and they say, oh, well, he's not going to harm anybody else, or he's not homicidal, he's not suicidal. So they don't take him. So you leave. So what am I supposed to do? At this point, what am I supposed to do? And they leave. And once again, I have to call again, and hopefully I get somebody else and try again.
Yeah. And then that leaves you as a parent totally consumed with your child, which it's right, it's your child, but there also needs to be support for the parents.
Right.
Because y'all are in it a lot of times by yourself, unless you're blessed enough to find a team that can lock hands with you and really, really make sure that they, positively, effectively attack the impairment.
Absolutely.
And the impairment is never the child, it's always the traits, the characteristics. And so, just wanted to put that out there for parents who are still in that space of how do I navigate this. The work works, but you got to get a team. You got to get a team you trust. And one thing Danielle did that I really loved is she listened. She didn't have to listen to me. She listened to my direction, my leadership. I did a lot of psychoeducation with her so she understands what the diagnosis is, what the diagnosis looks like, and me saying, listen, that's his diagnosis. This is who he is. This is who he's going to be. So we have to figure out how we manage it, how we teach him how to manage it. And we have to know that this is going to be our norm with him. This is not going to change. And what I did tell her was this, which was the hardest thing for me to say, but I can't do a disservice by not being honest. She said, is it going to get better? I said, no. It is only going to get harder. It is only going to get more challenging. So we have to get better in facilitating. We have to get better in finding homes for him. We have to get better in creating policies for him. We have to get better with how we manage him and manage us, right? Because this is not a diagnosis that gets better. And recently you said what? You said Dr. Bryant, his episodes used to be a week or two or even a month. Now how long are they?
We're going about 2 to 3 months.
In the episodes.
It's getting harder to pull him back, for him to be regulated, and where I can see him ebbing. And I could just see it's different. It's different. Each time is different.
Yep.
And like this last time, we've been dealing with it. It's been, like I said, about 3 months.
Yeah.
About 3 months this time.
Yeah. So I just want to thank you, Danielle, for one, trusting me with which was your baby, but now it's our baby.
It's our baby.
It's our baby. And listening to me and allowing me to be a part of, y'all's journey. And I smile because you're right. I have a special relationship with all my clients, but, me and Ev have a really, really, really special relationship. And it's been an honor to be a part of it with you, with him. And it's like y'all are clients, but y'all have become
Family.
more like family. And so I love you for that. And I want to make sure that you continue to minister your story. You continue to advocate for him and for parents who are in this situation.
Absolutely.
And we continue to just work as a team and as a village with getting Ev what he needs. There's been most of the time too, all the time, my mom, who's my operational manager, right? You working with her, trying to find him houses, placement, insurance, this. So when I say a village
Yeah.
and a team,
We got it.
we pulling for it.
Yeah.
So thank you. I love
Thank you. I
you.
love you too.
And let's keep working. Let's keep working.